Welcome back to Footballology. So, with only 2 more weeks left in the season, the New York Jets and the Jacksonville Jaguars are kind of finding a reason to watch their games, even though it's for all the wrong reasons. More or less, it's just for the guy that you see on the screen, Mr. Lawrence. Both the Jaguars and I think the Jets themselves are wanting to go get Trevor Lawrence. They feel like that he can be a franchise quarterback, a game-changing quarterback, and a lot of people have him graded out as far as like being as good as Andrew Luck coming out of Stanford. And I get that, I really do. And so in this video, I don't want to talk about the Jaguars, I don't want to talk about the Jets or even Trevor Lawrence himself. But what I really want to talk about is how teams have gotten this idea of going to go get a franchise quarterback is going to save their franchise or change everything. And yes, it makes your team more winnable or look more flashy, I guess. It sells tickets, and that's cool. I'm okay with that. I get that because it is a business at the end of the day. I get that. But we have to start to understand and we have to start being honest with ourselves when we start to look at taking these quarterbacks number one overall. Now, when you take a quarterback number one overall, he can't tackle, he can't pass coverage, he can't block, he can't run the ball, he can't run routes. These are things that are needed to have a successful team. And so just because you take a quarterback doesn't mean that your team is automatically going to elevate for another 4 to 5 wins. In some cases, I think Andrew Luck was probably the exception in this case, that he was that guy that elevated the Colts to another or a better team. But when it really starts to come down to it, that's one reason why Andrew Luck actually retired early was because the Colts did take him. Now, this is no knock against Andrew Luck or even taking a quarterback number one overall. The Colts just messed Luck up. And by doing so, they didn't, build an offensive line in front of him. They didn't give him better weapons. They didn't go out and try to build a defense. They didn't try to do anything. They were just so focused on, we got Luck, we're selling tickets, and we're winning games. Let that be it. And if you're a team and you need a quarterback, I get it. If a guy is graded out hard, like really high, and the guy has that really high ceiling and that high floor and all that good stuff and all the, the bells and whistles, and you feel like that he could be a franchise quarterback, yes, you are going to go get him. But it does you no good if you have a beautiful building sitting on a soft foundation or a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Unstable foundation, if you will. If the designer comes in and gives you like this beautiful building and he designs it and the artist draws it out and this building is just, it's immaculate, perfect, down to the last screw and bolt. But yet the foundation that's under it is just so weak and it can crumble at any given moment. If we go and just look at this season in recent history, just this season alone, with the Cincinnati Bengals were obviously a bad team because they had the number one overall pick. They go out and they get Joe Burrow, and that's cool. You got your quarterback, but yet you're still losing ball games. And then on top of that, you got your quarterback hurt because you didn't do anything in the offseason to say we're going to fix our offensive line to give him a better chance to succeed. We're going to trade away AJ Green to bring in some more offensive linemen, or trade away AJ Green to bring in some other players. I think some teams get caught up in the idea, especially now in today's league and with the Chiefs themselves, you get caught up in this idea of that we're just going to outscore everybody. We're going to put up 35 points, dare you to do the same. And I think we still have to understand, like, yes, that won the Super Bowl. I guess that's that anomaly, that once in a lifetime thing. But the old cliche saying of defense wins championships, I still feel like holds firm. And it holds even more water now when you think about bringing in a young quarterback or a rookie quarterback. You bring in a guy like Trevor Lawrence with the Jets. We can't cover still. We can't tackle. We can get after the quarterback because we have some pieces in place. Can we protect him? Or do we end up breaking his leg like the Cincinnati Bengals did by not giving him anything in front of him? Right? So it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. I get it. But I feel like if you have a quarterback on your roster, or a guy that you feel like still has some upside to him, I personally feel like even with Josh Rosen and his situation with the Cardinals one year around, and they just mopped him. They throw him out to scrap heap. Here's a guy that went number 10 overall or top 10 pick, and you just threw him out like he was nothing. You didn't try to design a team around him. You didn't try to protect him. You didn't try to give him weapons. You didn't do anything. And you go out the next year and you get a new head coach and you go get Kyler Murray, and yet your team still struggled that year. Now this year, obviously the Cardinals look a lot better, but what did they do for Kyler Murray? They went out and got some linemen, got some receivers. They started to try to build something to help Kyler Murray. And so I think sometimes quarterbacks get a bad nod because, the team around them, and they just get plugged into a bad situation. Another quarterback that always comes to mind when I think about this is David Carr. David Carr got plugged into the Houston Texans when that team was still in its infancy and still trying to figure out how to build a roster. And so they did have some pieces here and there, but they couldn't protect that man. And by the time he got to a certain point into his career, he could no longer, his quarterback clock, if you will, it just wasn't functioning anymore. It was sped up a little bit of time. Like he went from, being on the East Coast, being on the West Coast with his time, then all of a sudden being on the East Coast, and it just sped up completely. And his quarterback clock was completely off because he was so busy getting sacked all the time that's all he knew, is that he was going to get hit. He was going to drop back and get hit. Now, I'm not saying that if you put a perfect offensive line out there, everything is going to work out. Like, the quarterback's going to become an amazing quarterback. But I still believe in the old traditional way of bringing along a quarterback. Now, the idea of sitting a quarterback, that's still a good way to go. That's still a really good, viable way to go, especially if you got a good veteran in front of them. But I feel like a really solid offensive line, a really solid run game, and a really solid defense can bring a young quarterback along way better than just, hey, here's a bad team, make us good again. I always go back and you look at the Russell Wilson experiment, if you will, or the Russell Wilson development. When Russell Wilson went to those back-to-back Super Bowls, no knock on Russ, because he's a beast, he's good now, but it's because of what happened early in his career. But when Russ went to those back-to-back Super Bowls, or when they went to those Super Bowls in Seattle, you had the Legion of Boom, which was a vicious running, flying, tackling machine. You had an offensive line that was adequate. It was good. You had Marshawn Lynch, who was one of the better power runners in the league, or is one of the better power runners in the league. And then you had this quarterback from Russell Wilson and said, hey, take it slow. Just don't do anything to lose the game. We're going to put you in positions to get some easy first downs. We're going to put you in positions to make some good throws. Let your talent show every once in a while. Let it flourish a little bit. But right now, what we want to do is we want to ease you into this, and we want to slowly build you up to something. Even the same thing with Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger, early in his career, stellar defense, great run game, had some decent weapons on the outside. Don't do too much, Ben. Just do enough. We're going to ease you along. And then eventually we're going to get up to the 35, 40 touchdowns. Now, there's some quarterbacks that have had the idea of like sitting, or the quarterbacks that have sat, with like Aaron Rodgers, who sat for so long that he had no choice but to know the system in and out. But he also had an opportunity, and I made a video about that, to really develop himself because he knew the system so well. So when you have the chance for your quarterback to sit, he knows the system, now he can develop himself, develop his game, and get better as a quarterback, then that's another way to go about it. I guess I said all that to say this. Even if the Jets wind up with the number 1 overall pick, don't expect Trevor Lawrence to come in and be a revolutionized, game-saving quarterback killer that's just going to destroy everything in front of him and going to be able to turn your franchise around in 1 year. You don't have a lot of other pieces around him. Granted, you did take Mekhi Becton last year, a guy that came in and he's looked like he's a good tackle and he's playing some good ball, and you're working on some other things around him. And I granted there's free agency and everything, and you can still add more to the pool, but don't expect Lawrence to really elevate this team to an 8-win team or even playoff team, because if you don't do the other things around him to allow his confidence to build up over time, this is like a new job. Like, you can't just expect somebody to come in their first day on the job and just kill it like that. No, they need training. They need time. They need confidence. They need to get into a rhythm, a routine, build themselves up so then they can be the best versions of themselves. So if the Jets wind up getting Trevor Lawrence, which it looks like it's probably going to wind up happening. I mean, the Jaguars can still get the number 1 overall pick and they can wind up with him. But whichever team winds up with him, don't just come in and just think that he's going to do everything. You still have to build things around him. And it frustrates me because Joe Burrow did look good in his rookie campaign. He looked like he was well off to a possible Rookie of the Year award because, quarterbacks win all the awards first. But he looked like he was on his way for that. And then the Bengals didn't do anything else. I mean, they had all these weapons. They had everything. They had all the bells and whistles, but they didn't have the foundation. Like I said, the designer came in for the Bengals, and it was beautiful but the foundation under the building was straight made out of clay and potato and Play-Doh. Like that's what that foundation was made out of. I just don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to save a franchise unless a franchise can save themselves. That's all I'm saying. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not a footballologist yet, go and subscribe to the YouTube channel today. Become a footballologist. And stay safe, football fans.